Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have a sharp game to share with you from 1995 on the white end Judit Polgar playing against Alexey Shirov. All right, we have a modern defense, and with knight c3, this is the standard line. Black supports d5, challenging white's pawn duo. Denied. White has too much on this square for d5 to now work, so it's d6. Polgar now targets the weakest square, addressed with e6. White continues to develop. Black continues to push pawns. This is really the thing that stuck out to me with this game. 7 moves in, 6 of Black's moves, pawn moves. And he's got another one up his sleeve, a4, trapping the bishop. White has to react to this. How would you react here? Are you going with a3 or a4? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, this was a moment I found instructive with this game. Polgar plays a3. First of all, both pawn moves. This bishop's now cool. Don't have to worry about it being trapped. a4, we got a square on a2. Why is a3 better than a4? Well, let's have a look at a4 and try to make some sense of this. Here are some things to consider. a4 challenges a pawn duo. This is an, on the surface, positive, let's say. Also, white gives direction to black. There's a problem now on b5. So, challenging pawn duos, giving direction to your opponent, in general, positives, right? But in this case, black has a convenient reply. b4, and where does this guy go? Has to hit the reverse button. Has to underdevelop. Does white really want to have to play in this way? Position here likes black. Now, computer says, that's how big a difference, that's how easily this evaluation can shift. Difference here between a3 and a4. Also, does white want to have the structure on the queen side rigid like this? Is white welcome to cases of fixed pawns and an invasive b4 pawn? Probably not. And I say this because in this position here, white has a lead in development. So in general, it makes more sense to keep the pawns fluid. There's still the potential maybe for an a4 move at a later point, creating tension. When might that actually show up? Let's say this pawn is up a step, and then there's a later a4, and then you can meet b4 with not hitting the reverse button, but making use of the e4 square. All that said, here's maybe a simpler view. a3 allows the c3 knight to stay put. There's now no b4. b4 here, you can take, the a pawn is pinned to the rook. Okay. In this game, we follow up with bishop a6. Now, b4 might be an idea. After takes, there's no pin on the a file, or the a pawn at least, would not be pinned to the rook anymore. Where do we go from here? Do we play in a robotic way as white? Say to ourselves, we haven't castled, let's just castle? No. Now's the time to strike. d5 creates tension. One way or the other, there will be a pawn exchange now that there's a fork here. What pawn exchange are we going to get? Well, in this game, black takes with the c pawn, and then follows up with e5. Before we get there, though, let's consider the other path, that is to take with the e pawn, and then push c5, trying to keep it closed. You're definitely playing as black here. Don't want to allow the d5 square to open up all of these different white pieces. How would you continue here with this structure as white? Knight e4 is very good. Pressure on d6, also supporting bishop g5, and in some cases the bishop can go to f4 and really increase the pressure on d6. Okay, playing c takes d5, and then e5. This is a strong pawn. Does a good job of taming the second rank knight, and you don't have to worry about, as black here, any bishop f4 moves. Got that square covered. Okay, Polgar continues now with knight to e4. Still no castling here. Follow-up is queen to c7. Now, the move that's considered best here is h6. Less than a year after this game was played, Shirov had this same position right here. This position right here had the same position as black against Vishy Anand. And he made the improvement. He didn't go with queen c7. He played h6. Anand's reply was g4. That was a very lengthy game, a 58 mover. And I believe it was even after 30 moves. This game here that I'm presenting to you is only a 21 mover. This is where it starts to go downhill for Shirov. He goes with queen c7. Notice in this position, the point behind h6, it's looking to next play f5. If you try f5 right now, the knight has access to g5 and e6, the weakest square in black's camp. So this is the point behind h6. Stop knight g5. In this game, it's queen c7. Follow up now, c4. Still no castles. Time to open more lines. Polgar gets just that. Black captures here on c4. If black tries something else, let's say a4, you could already ignore this threat on the bishop. c5 is a very strong move, meeting pawn takes bishop with knight d6. Where's the compensation for being down this light square bishop? Well, we got this, what do we call it? An octopus knight on d6. Black's going to be uncastled, and yeah, these guys are looking pretty good too. Two connected passed pawns, the 5th rank. Okay, all sorts of sacrifices are available to the side here with the lead in development. In this game, it's b takes c, met now with bishop a4 check, knight d7, still no castles. Improving the knight to c3. Follow up now is king to e7. Yet again, in this position, computer wants to go with h6. There's something that black overlooked with king to e7. I wonder if you can spot Polgar's follow-up. Feel free to pause the video. Okay. The best move, knight takes d6, ripping the heart out of black's position. This pawn is now ready to run wild. The d5 square can open up for pieces. This one's now gone for black. What's happening here? In the game, the knight is captured with the queen. What's happening if the king takes the knight? Well, this is crazy, but still let me put on a couple moves here. Knight e4 check can follow. If the king is still running forward, there's going to be a mate. Queen takes f7. You take the knight, it's a mate in 2 with the bishops and the queens flying everywhere. That's checkmate. What other option for black in this position? King d4. We would have a check. If you take the knight, it's mate. And if you move forward, I must admit, when I was going through this game, I really wanted queenside castles to be mate. Not quite. Okay, white would just have to settle for queen d5 mate in this case. Anything else after king takes and knight e4? Well, if you go here, that's going to hurt. Fork on board. Okay, in this game, it is queen takes knight. In comes knight number 2 into e4. Queen takes pawn. Only winning move now. Not the most difficult one to spot. Simple development with tempo, with check. Knight d to f6, another only move to remain winning. Again, not a difficult one to spot here. Activating your pieces. That's the name of the game here. Queen rook, now invited into the mix. Don't have to worry about queen takes knight. You're just going to lose the queen. The knight on f6 is pinned. In the game, Shirov plays queen b7. If the queen instead goes to e6, how can you continue here? Rook to d6. And there's a big problem here on f6. What does black play here? Queen f5. Here's how you can continue. Insert a check. And knight to d6. You see what's happening here? Queen's hitting the rook. And the knight's hitting the queen. And there's also a mate in 1 threat. So 3 problems for black to sort out here. And you can't sort them all out. If black flicks in a check, white says, so what? Still no answer to these 2 threats. Okay, in this game, no queen e6, queen b7 it is, allowing now rook d7, a fork. The queen is lost. Knight still pinned, queen takes rook, bishop takes queen, and now Shirov plays h6. But by this point, it's way too late. The current imbalance here, it's rook, knight, and pawn versus queen, but they are no match for the queen. I highlighted these 2 pieces for a reason. Why are they no match for the queen? Well, they have no moves. Knight on f6 is pinned, rook cornered. Okay. In this game, it is h6. And I wonder if you can spot the final move to this game. Feel free to pause the video. All right, if you came up with this one, give yourself a pat on the back. It's a really pretty one. Not too often you get to see the queen retreat, going back home, forcing resignation. That's the ball game. There's no way to prevent the white queen from entering black's house. d6. It's game over. How do you play here if the game did continue? Pawn takes bishop. This is going to be a checkmate. Several moves deep, but very forcing. Bunch of checks. King here. It's going to be mate in 2 with queen b6. King here, mate with knight d6. Or king here, mate with queen d6. The other option for black, king b8, check on b6, king here, knight d6 is mate. The only other option is to block, but we're going to soon have a checkmate. Mate in 1 threat on b7, only defense with the rook, but then there's a mate in 2 with a check, check, mate. So playing down a queen here, as black trying to tame these 2 pieces working together, yeah, that is a very tall task. No defense here for black after this cool final move, this retreat back home with the queen to d1. So, what did you think of this one? Anyhow, feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or 2 away. That's all for now. Take care.